It's a strange and uncomfortable truth about the human heart. The people you love the most are often the people you resent the most. Your partner, your parents, your closest friend, the ones you would do anything for, the ones whose love means everything to you. And also, somehow, the ones who can fill you with a hot, sudden resentment that shocks you with its intensity. A stranger can disappoint you and you shrug it off. But when someone you love lets you down, forgets something that mattered, fails to understand you, or simply is not what you needed them to be in a particular moment, something rises in you that can feel almost like hatred toward the very person you love most in the world. And then comes the guilt. Because how can you feel this way about someone you love? What kind of person resents the people they're supposed to cherish? You may hide the resentment, or judge yourself for it, or feel confused and ashamed by the coexistence of such love and such hostility toward the same person. It can make you feel that something is wrong with you, or wrong with the relationship. That love and resentment shouldn't be able to live in the same heart, aimed at the same person, and that their coexistence means one of them must be false. Melanie Klein, one of the most original and profound psychoanalysts of the 20th century, understood this coexistence better than almost anyone, and she understood that it is not a flaw or a failure, but a fundamental feature of how human love actually works. She discovered that love and hate toward the same person are not opposites that cancel each other out, but partners that exist together from the very beginning of life. And she understood something that can transform how you see this painful pattern, that you resent the people you love the most precisely because you love them the most, because only the people who matter deeply enough can frustrate you deeply enough to provoke it. This is a video about that uncomfortable truth and about what it really means. Melanie Klein was a pioneering psychoanalyst who transformed our understanding of the inner world, particularly through her groundbreaking work on the earliest stages of human psychological life. Where much of psychoanalysis focused on later childhood, Klein pushed further back, into infancy, and mapped the intense emotional world of the very young child with a depth and originality that reshaped the field. And at the center of her discoveries was a phenomenon she considered fundamental to all human relationships: ambivalence, the coexistence of love and hate toward the same person. Klein understood that our capacity for relationships is formed in our very first relationship, the bond between the infant and its primary caregiver, usually the mother. And she observed that this first relationship is, from the beginning, marked by profound ambivalence. The caregiver is the source of everything good: nourishment, comfort, warmth, the satisfaction of every need. But the same caregiver is also, inevitably, the source of frustration. They are not always there the instant they are needed. They cannot satisfy every desire immediately. They have their own life and their own limits. And so the infant experiences, toward the same person, both intense love and gratitude when their needs are met, and intense frustration, even hatred, when they are not. This was Klein's revolutionary insight, that from the very start of life, we feel both love and hate toward the people we depend on, and that these feelings are directed at the same person. The infant does not have one relationship with a good caregiver and a separate relationship with a bad one. They have a single relationship with a caregiver who is both, who both gratifies and frustrates, who is both loved and hated, often in rapid succession or even simultaneously. Ambivalence, in Klein's understanding, is not a later corruption of a purely loving bond. It is woven into the very foundation of how we relate to those we depend on, present from the earliest moments of life. And this early template, Klein understood, shapes all our later relationships. The pattern established in that first bond, of loving and resenting the same person, of feeling both gratitude and frustration toward the one we depend on, continues throughout our lives, structuring how we relate to everyone we come to love. The partner, the parent, the close friend of our adult life occupies the same emotional position the first caregiver did. The person we depend on, who therefore has the power both to satisfy us profoundly and to frustrate us profoundly, and toward whom we therefore feel both profound love and, inevitably, resentment. The people we love most are the people we depend on most, and dependence, Klein understood, always breeds ambivalence. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. One of Klein's most important discoveries was about how the young mind copes with the unbearable difficulty of feeling both love and hate toward the same person. And this coping mechanism, which begins in infancy, continues to shape our adult relationships in ways that illuminate exactly why we resent those we love. Klein observed that the infant, faced with the overwhelming reality that the same caregiver is both the source of all good and the source of all frustration, initially cannot tolerate this coexistence. It is too much for the young psyche to hold, to know that the person they love and the person they hate are one and the same. And so the infant performs a psychological maneuver that Klein called splitting. They split the caregiver into two separate figures, an all-good one and an all-bad one. When the caregiver satisfies them, they experience a wholly good, loving presence. When the caregiver frustrates them, they experience a wholly bad, hateful one. By splitting the person in two, the infant protects the love from the hate, keeping the good caregiver safe and uncontaminated from the rage directed at the bad one. Klein called this early mode of experience the paranoid schizoid position, a way of relating to others in which they are split into all good and all bad, rather than experienced as whole people who are both. And crucially, Klein understood that we never entirely outgrow this mode. Under stress, under threat, when our needs are frustrated and our emotions run high, we regress to it. We split the people we love into all good and all bad, and in the moment of frustration, we experience them as wholly bad, as if their goodness had never existed. This is what happens in those moments of sudden, intense resentment toward someone we love. We have temporarily split them, and we are experiencing them as the all-bad version, the frustrating enemy, with the loving reality of who they are momentarily eclipsed. This splitting explains one of the most confusing aspects of resenting those we love, how the love can seem to vanish entirely in the moment of resentment. When you are flooded with resentment toward someone you love, it can feel as though you don't love them at all, as though the love was never real. Because in that moment you have split them, and you are experiencing only the all-bad version. And then, when the frustration passes, the love comes flooding back, and you cannot understand how you could have felt such hostility toward someone you cherish. This oscillation between the loved and the resented version of the same person is the operation of splitting, the primitive mechanism by which we manage an ambivalence we cannot yet hold together. Klein understood that this splitting, while it protects us from the difficulty of ambivalence, comes at a cost. It distorts our perception of the people we love, causing us to experience them as wholly bad in moments of frustration when they are, in reality, the same whole people we love. It drives the intensity of our resentment, because the split-off bad version is experienced as purely hateful, with none of the mitigating reality of the person's goodness. And it keeps us trapped in a kind of emotional instability, swinging between idealization and resentment, unable to hold a steady, realistic view of the people we love as the complex, whole beings they actually are. Klein's understanding did not stop at splitting. She described a crucial developmental achievement, one that we spend our whole lives working toward, that both explains why closeness breeds resentment and points toward a more mature way of loving. She called it the depressive position, and despite its unfortunate name, it represents a profound growth in our capacity to love. The depressive position is the achievement of recognizing that the good and the bad are the same person, that the caregiver we love and the caregiver we hate are one whole being, both gratifying and frustrating, both good and bad. This is a monumental developmental step, because it means giving up the protective splitting and tolerating the difficult truth that we love and resent the same person. When the child reaches the depressive position, they integrate the split images into a whole, and they realize, with a kind of grief, that the person they have hated in moments of frustration is the very same person they love. This brings guilt, the painful recognition that our hatred has been directed at someone we love, and with it, the wish to repair, to make amends, to restore the loved person we have attacked in our minds. Klein understood the depressive position not as a problem, but as the foundation of mature love. To love someone maturely is precisely to hold them as a whole person, to love them while accepting that they also frustrate you, to feel resentment toward them without losing your grip on the love, to tolerate the ambivalence rather than escaping it through splitting. The depressive position is the capacity to know that the person who just disappointed you is the same person you love, and to hold both truths at once without either one canceling the other. This is difficult, lifelong work, and we never do it perfectly. We are always liable to slip back into splitting under stress, but it represents the direction of emotional maturity toward the capacity to love whole, real people, ambivalence and all. And here, in Klein's framework, is the deepest answer to why you resent the people you love the most. It is because they are the people you depend on the most, the people who matter to you the most, and therefore the people with the greatest power to frustrate you. A stranger cannot really frustrate you because you do not depend on them, do not need anything essential from them, are not vulnerable to them. But the people you love hold your heart. You need them, depend on them, are exposed to them in the deepest way. And so they, uniquely, have the power to disappoint you profoundly, to fail to meet your deepest needs, to wound you where you are most vulnerable. The resentment is the shadow of the love and the dependence. Only someone who matters that much can hurt you that much. The intensity of your resentment is, paradoxically, a measure of the intensity of your love. Modern research supports this understanding of why our closest relationships carry the most negativity. Studies of close relationships have found that our most intimate bonds are often the most emotionally ambivalent, that the people who are the greatest sources of our positive feelings are frequently also the greatest sources of our negative ones. Researchers studying what they call ambivalent relationships have found that these mixed bonds, containing both strong positivity and strong negativity, are extremely common precisely among our closest ties: spouses, family members, dear friends. This is because closeness means interdependence, and interdependence means vulnerability. The people we are most connected to have the most power to affect us, for good and for ill. What Klein understood through her exploration of the inner world, modern relationship science confirms. The depth of our love and the depth of our resentment toward the same person are intimately, structurally linked. Klein's understanding, reinforced by modern research, points toward a mature way of holding the ambivalence that is inherent in all deep love, not eliminating the resentment, which is impossible, but relating to it in a way that protects rather than damages the relationships you value. The first movement is to accept ambivalence as normal rather than pathological, to release the belief that love and resentment cannot coexist. So much of the suffering around resenting those we love comes from the conviction that we shouldn't feel this way, that the resentment means something is wrong. Klein's insight frees us from this. Ambivalence is not a flaw in your love, but a fundamental feature of all deep human bonds. When you understand that loving and resenting the same person is normal, universal, and woven into the very structure of intimacy, you can stop adding guilt and self-judgment to the resentment. The practice is simply to accept that you will feel both love and resentment toward the people you love, that this is how human love actually works, and that it does not make you bad or your love false. The second movement is to recognize splitting when it happens, to notice when you have collapsed a whole person into their all-bad version. In the moment of intense resentment, when someone you love has become, in your mind, wholly frustrating and hateful, the practice is to recognize what is happening. This is splitting. I am experiencing only the bad version of a person who is actually whole. This recognition creates a crucial space. It reminds you, in the heat of resentment, that the person you are currently experiencing as all bad is the same person you love, whose goodness is real, even though you cannot feel it in this moment. Simply remembering that the frustrating version and the loved version are the same person begins to heal the split and to soften the intensity of the resentment. The third movement is to work toward the depressive position, to practice holding the whole person, love and frustration together rather than escaping into splitting. This is the mature capacity Klein pointed toward, and it can be deliberately cultivated. When resentment arises, the practice is to consciously hold both truths at once. This person is frustrating me right now, and this person is someone I love. Both are true, and I do not have to choose between them or let one erase the other. This is difficult. It means tolerating the discomfort of ambivalence rather than resolving it through the false clarity of splitting. But each time you manage to hold the whole person, to stay in contact with the love even while feeling the resentment, you strengthen your capacity for mature love and weaken the grip of the primitive splitting that distorts your relationships. The fourth movement is to allow the resentment to inform rather than damage the relationship, to recognize what your resentment is telling you without letting it drive destructive action. Resentment toward those we love often contains real information, an unmet need, a genuine hurt, a boundary that was crossed, something that genuinely needs to be addressed in the relationship. The practice is neither to suppress the resentment nor to act it out destructively, but to hold it, understand it, and, where appropriate, communicate the need or hurt beneath it in a way that can actually be heard. When you can say, calmly and after the heat of the split has passed, that something hurt you or that you need something different, the resentment becomes a source of genuine connection and repair rather than a source of damage. The very resentment that could corrode the relationship, when held maturely and understood, can become an occasion for the relationship to deepen, for the real needs and hurts beneath it to be seen and addressed, and for the bond to grow more honest and more whole. The reason you resent the people you love the most is not that something is wrong with you, or wrong with your love, or wrong with your relationships. It is that love and resentment toward the same person are woven together into the very fabric of human intimacy, present from the first bond of infancy and continuing through every deep relationship of our lives. Melanie Klein understood that ambivalence is not the enemy of love, but its constant companion, that we feel both love and hate toward those we depend on precisely because we depend on them, and that only the people who matter to us most can frustrate us, disappoint us, and provoke our resentment most deeply. The resentment is the shadow cast by the love. They exist together, and they always have. This understanding can transform how you experience the uncomfortable coexistence of love and resentment in your closest relationships. Instead of feeling that your resentment means your love is false, or that something is broken in you or the relationship, you can recognize the resentment as the natural and inevitable companion of deep love, as evidence, even, of how much the person matters to you, since only someone who matters that much could provoke such feeling. The guilt and confusion that so often surround resenting those we love come largely from misunderstanding it as a betrayal of love, when it is in fact love's inescapable shadow. And Klein pointed toward something more than mere acceptance, toward the mature capacity to hold love and resentment together, to experience the people we love as whole beings who both gratify and frustrate us, and to remain in contact with the love even in the moments of deepest frustration. This is the work of a lifetime, and none of us do it perfectly. We will always be liable to split, under stress, into the all-good and all-bad versions, to lose the love in the heat of resentment and then recover it when the storm passes. But the direction of growth is clear, toward the capacity to love whole, real, imperfect people, ambivalence and all, without needing them to be perfect, and without letting the inevitable resentment destroy the love. You do not have to resolve the coexistence of love and resentment, because it cannot be resolved. It is simply the truth of loving another whole human being who will inevitably, sometimes, frustrate and disappoint you. What you can do is hold it with more wisdom and less guilt. To recognize the resentment as the shadow of your love rather than its contradiction. To remember in the moments of frustration that the person you resent is the same person you cherish, and to let the whole, complex, ambivalent reality of your love be what it actually is. The people you love most will always be the people you resent most, because they are the people who matter most. And there is a strange comfort in that the resentment you have carried with such guilt is not a sign of a failure of love, but one of its truest and most human expressions.